Okay, so anyways, boys, we just got done playing the Diablo 4 beta both weekends in a row, and we played a lot, probably like over 100 hours. We played every single class up to level 25, and basically got endgame builds for all of them, experimented with different builds. I felt like it would be fun to make a little class tier list based off early game performance and also my personal enjoyment. Keep in mind, this tier list is just for early game. I didn't play the NDA late game beta, but there has been some little birdies chirping in the trees telling us how some of the end game balancing is. So you just keep in mind, this is not how the classes are going to perform in late game when it really matters. This is just our experience with the classes early on. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to just go down the list with all the characters that I made. Some are in softcore, some are in hardcore. And I'm just going to explain what I thought about each class, and we're going to do a little run on them. There we go. So this was the first character I made, which is the Rogue. It's a very agile class, very tactical combat, and extremely fun. The build that I ended up coming up with, there's a lot of really good builds, but I was just using like an auto attack build with puncture over here as my generator. Spender, I really like Flurry because of this legendary power that basically turned it into an AoE circle. But honestly, all the rogue spenders ended up being viable. Rapid fire, really good. Penetrating shot, insane damage. Twisting blade, probably the best overall. And barrage also did decent also. Rogue has a lot of mobility type skills, you know, Shadow Step, Caltrops, which now mobility is just damage, and then Dash. For this build I was using Dash for mobility, and then this is a poison based build, so I'm using Poison Trap, drop little poisons on the ground, and I'm also using Poison Imbuement. Shadow Imbuement's better for clear though, and there's some cool utility stuff with Cold Imbuement. And then my favorite ultimate was definitely Shadow Clones, and they would just mimic your abilities for a bit. I'll just go over my gear real quick. So this build that I really liked on Rogue, you basically used your mobility skill, and then it would reduce the cooldown of Poison Trap. So you just basically dash and then Poison Trap and then, you know, burst stuff down. Using some daggers, basic attack speed increase, Flurry AoE, little barrier, nothing too crazy. Not using a crossbow, but yeah, my daggers aren't like level 35 weapons. Then for the specialization felt good. I preferred combo points. Inner Sight kind of felt a little lackluster though. It didn't feel the best. There was some situation like on single target stuff only that was all right, but just for farming in general, I definitely preferred combo points. Here, anyway, let's go do a little dungeon run and see how it goes. You drop a little poison trap on the ground and you just kill stuff real quick. Alright, you just generate your combo points, you have a bunch of attack speed, and that's pretty much it. That's the basis of the build.
I'm not ready yet.
And you're really tanky too, which is nice. Bro, it's on World Tier 1! Oh my god! World Tier 2 run. Not World Tier 1.
I need more time.
Oh, Lethal Shrine. Let me get this. It's a debated Lethal Shrine though. This is just as quick. Yeah, no, Rogue overall, I love the gameplay. Rogue gameplay is extremely fun. For this dungeon, you actually don't complete the entire dungeon. You just run the first area where the elites are at, and that's it. So you like come here, right, and then you clear, and then once you get to this area where you have to go through this door, you don't do it. You just reset the dungeon, and then it pushes you out to the start. It's a lot quicker, and you earn more gold per hour. I tested it. I was making like 100,000 more gold per hour doing it this way, and getting more legendaries and rares. So if you were actually full clearing this dungeon, you were farming inefficiently. And that's how it was for a lot of the dungeons. A lot of the dungeons, the way they were designed, via the backtracking, because of the objectives, it wasn't actually worth full completing the dungeon outside of the first clear for the aspects. You would just clear a portion of the dungeon, get the base loot, and then quit because the bosses weren't rewarding or the end chests weren't rewarding. They would just give you like 1 or 2 rares for a couple extra minutes. And that just goes into people's criticism about dungeon design being bad in Diablo 4. Yeah, so from what we've seen so far early game, The dungeon design, objectives, the way they're laid out, the way you farm them is not inherently good, but besides a few of them. Okay, so anyway, that basically Rogue. This was like my favorite build with Flurry, even though like Rogue has a bunch of different viable builds. So we are gonna rank it. We're gonna do a little Rogue ranking. This is my first character I made. So in terms of the early game viability and what I saw during the beta, doing like world bosses, doing like dungeon clearing and stuff like that, Rogue wasn't super overpowered, but it was extremely mobile. So I would put Rogue within A tier if we were talking about early game performance, and this doesn't mean late game. But in terms of fun, if we were gonna categorize Rogue on fun, it was probably my most fun character. I don't think, from what I've seen, it doesn't seem like Rogue, it doesn't really seem overtuned. It's kind of like just one of those jack of all trades, extremely fun, extremely mobile, quick attacking, fast-paced character that was very, very enjoyable to play. So A tier for viability, and then S tier for fun, but we'll throw it right there in A tier. Second character we made during the beta was Wizard. We're just gonna do a quick little overview of it. We're gonna do a little dungeon run. I'll tell you my thoughts on it. Wizard, one of the most iconic characters in the Diablo series. But overall, in terms of skills, currently using Arc Lash, which it's all right for my generator. For my spender, I'm not actually using a spender. A lot of people are just using like Chain Lightning, and then you would get your crackling energy, and it would give you an insane amount of AoE. But then outside of that, I tested all the different builds, and they all really seemed viable. They weren't as strong as like the meta build on beta, which was Hydra, but Frozen Orb was 100% viable. There's some cool Ice Shard, single target stuff that I could do. Fireball clear, absolutely ginormous. Over here in your defensive skills, your flame shield, your teleport, your ice armor, and your frost nova. Swords definitely had the best mobility skill in the beta, felt really, really good. It also provided you extra damage reduction. Hydra definitely seemed a little overtuned early on, just because of the Hydra legendary giving you extra cast. If you cast it when you're healthy, you get an extra head, and you could just drop them, and it would essentially just auto aim, auto target kill everything. And there was also some cool tech that you could do with ice blades, where it would like reset your cooldown, so it almost played like a Diablo 3 CM wizard. And like most classes, I really did not find myself using the ultimate abilities too much on wizard. Sometimes I would use Deep Freeze, but I actually felt like the build functioned a little better without an ultimate ability, and that's one of the things I think Blizzard needs to work on. It's making ultimate abilities feel a little bit more ultimate-y, or giving them their own slots so you don't feel like taking up a slot on your bar for it. In addition to that, Wizard felt really, really good, because whenever you would cast and stuff, you would regenerate your resource, and then it also had one of the most versatile mastery systems of the entire game. Yeah, and then this is also interchangeable too, so when you pull up your skills, right now I'm using like the fireball system. Your enchantment system, it's just so versatile. So based on whatever content you could do, you could just interchange this. You could even swap it while you're in combat. So a lot of times when I was clearing, I would use Fireball mod. It kind of just acted as Explode mod from PoE. It gave you a bunch of clear. Single target, most of the time I would swap to like Ice Blades. If I was playing hardcore, I would just put on Flame Shield for like a cheat death. But this whole enchantment system, absolutely amazing, and probably I would say the best class mastery system in all of Diablo 4. I wish more classes had a system like this, because it led to a lot of build diversity and customization. I'll just do a little overview of my gear. Not too good. I'm not using like level 35 gear. Build enable, this is one of your build enabling items, your Hydra. There's some barrier damage stuff. Let's go clear. Yeah, you just every single time you engage a pack, pretty much you just need to kill one mob and everything dies via the explode mobs from Fireball, which made it really, really nice for farming.
I'm not ready yet.
You had a lot of defensive layers on Wizard too, so it was extremely tanky. 350 at 360, you're not using level 35 items. Those aren't level 35 items, those are event items. Event items and 35 items are totally different. Oh, legendary. Yeah, Sork has like a good unbreakable stuff, CC break, high uptime on shields, freezes, DCs.
not ready yet.
This clear seems kind of slow. My wizard not really pimped out on. I'm not using the AoE mechanic. This is just pure Hydras. That's basically source gameplay. I'm not using like a full-on clear build. This was kind of like just my world boss build that I was using that had high single target damage. But overall, like the entire source setup, extremely strong, right? Just between immunities, CC breaks, barriers, generation, variety of spenders, your class mastery system. Based off this beta, I would put Sorceress 100% in the S tier. Probably if not the best class in the entire beta. It was kind of like, it was just good at everything. There wasn't really a thing it was bad at. Really good survivability, good diversity, extremely mobile. It was very, very, very strong. And I probably see a lot of people starting Sorceress once Diablo 4 fully launches. Now, in terms of fun, I actually found Sorceress not the funnest, but I'm not really a Source player, so I would actually put Source in the A tier. It wasn't the most unfun character, but there is definitely characters that were a lot more fun than Sorceress. But in terms of viability during the beta, I would put Sorceress at S tier. Source overall, extremely, extremely strong. Okay, third character that I played, and this character was on hardcore mode. This is my Barbarian, our first melee type character. Let's talk about the leveling experience. Melee leveling experience in the Diablo 4 beta, it was a spectacle, a struggle, one would say. A lot of melee type characters struggled from a lack of overtuned skills, so you're dependent on legendaries. A lot of the bosses and things that you would do were anti-melee. They would always try to put distance between you and they would just try to put distance between you all the time, and you would have to use the movement skill. And honestly, the best way I've found to circumvent that on Barbarian is by using Lunge Strike as a gap closer. Even though it's not the best generator for the build I'm running, I would rather use Flay, but I just found myself running Lunge Strike all the time for the gap closer. And you also had like Charge and Leap Slam too, which was kind of nice. Barbarian leveling felt not that good until you ended up getting some uniques, and then we ended up going Thorn build, and the mobs would just end up killing themselves. Yeah, let's go over Barbarian. So Barbarian was one of the classes that didn't actually have its weapon techniques / weapon expertise system in the game, so you couldn't really get a full grasp of how this class performed. But with a lot of investment in legendary powers, it did pretty good. There was a lot of viable builds, and little birdies say that this system is extremely powerful late game, and that Barbarians will be doing insane amounts of damage. But we weren't, and we actually saw people doing an insane amount of damage during the beta. People that were going like Upheaval, Hoda build were hitting for a couple 100,000 burst damage sometimes, like in one singular hit. But the build I ended up playing, what I enjoyed actually was a Thorns build, which is enabled by this legendary power. All you do is basically just stack Thorns damage on your character. You would run this amulet, and the mobs would kind of just kill themselves. Then you could use like a generator and a spender. That's all my gear I'm using, and all the mobs would kill themselves. I'll just show you my build too real quick. So I'm using Lunge just feel like the mobility. Play just gave you more damage for you that had, you know, your little vulnerability. Then also to give you more Thorns damage, so that would just give you some more burst there. I was using Ren for bleed pops, and that was more optimal, but then I found Upheaval more fun, and it was still viable. You could like face tank the Butcher and kill him. Rallying Cry for like more movement speed and fortified generation, since the fortified mechanic is really, really important for a lot of characters. And you just want to get your Fortify up to invoke damage reduction. You just scale life, right? Your life gave us Thorns damage there. Stuff is nails. Also be doing Challenging Shout. We got Charge. I'm using a Legendary that gives me pops, and then I'm using Call the Ancient as my filler. But anyways, let's go do a little run in this area on our Barbarian over here. And another important thing that a lot of people weren't doing as a Barbarian is utilizing the arsenal system correctly. So what you could actually do is you could assign what weapons to use on certain skills, right? So let's say like over here, you know, you have your main ability, right? Right, you see like you have your skill, and you'd actually scroll down. You couldn't even see it, right? It says arsenal selection. So you could change what abilities use what weapons on your Barbarian. Right, so you see, you scroll down, and then you're supposed to click the trigger of the arsenal system. By default, it was on auto select, but you could choose what you wanted. And the reason why that you had to select this is because there's like build enabling legendaries where it's like every single time you swap a weapon, you gain an effect. The game sometimes wouldn't optimize your weapons correctly for skills, and you wouldn't fully benefit from them. So you actually just had to go in here and you had to select what skills you wanted to use. And that's a very, very important part of the barbarian system. Yeah, notice right here, this is a perfect example of why people didn't know to use this. It's because a lot of the tooltip is covered up here, right? You have to scroll down, and then you have to look at it, and then you swap your weapons. Yeah, barbarian, not super intuitive. They don't really describe this too well early on. But yeah, make sure you set up your barbarian arsenal system so you benefit from your endgame system correctly. So this was my favorite build on barbarian. There was a bunch of other viable builds, like upheaval build that would hit for hundreds of thousands of damage. There's some Hoda builds and stuff, but I kind of dislike mobs that's attacking me being tanky and them just killing themselves. It was fun. And then every single time I charge, it put like a little exploding palm explosion on the mobs, and they would just blow up.
I'm not ready yet.
I just like charging around with my lunge and just letting the mob attack me and kill me.
I must wait.
Auto attack them.
I'm not ready yet.
That was a great shot. More gold. Let's do it. Anyway, that's barbarian gameplay. But yeah, overall, barbarian, the problem with barbarian is the leveling portion of barbarian needs to be adjusted a little bit. But once you start getting your legendary powers and synergy, it becomes a lot better, and there is a lot of viable builds. So overall, for the beta, for my overall rank for barbarian, I would probably put it within B tier. And the reason why I put it in B tier is that early game leveling experience without the synergy is extremely bad, and it's off-putting for a lot of players. However, once you start getting your synergies and you're pushing a late game and become more powerful, it becomes a lot better. And potentially in end game, it could become one of the best characters of all time, especially with some of the damage numbers that we saw, right? Like your damage output is definitely there. But when you're toe-to-toe with enemies and like you're trying to face tank early on, you don't feel like you have that good of survivability. Now, in terms of fun, though, I actually had a blast on Barbarian. It was extremely fun to play. For me, just dashing around and stuff like that, I would put Barbarian in the fun tier within the A tier. And that's kind of how that was kind of my initial impression on Barbarian. I'll put it in the B tier over here. Okay, our next character, probably the most controversial character of the beta, the Druid, or as people called him the entire weekend, Esfand. I don't know why they call him Esfand, but they just kept on calling him Esfand the entire time. So, Druid, this was my most anticipated character of the beta. So one of the main problems melee characters had during the beta, especially Druid, was the leveling experience. If you look outside your house and you see a trash can, that was basically what Druid was early on. It was so fucking bad. It was the worst leveling experience that I had in the entire Diablo 4 beta. How it even entered the beta in this state, I have no fucking idea, but it was absolutely terrible. However, once you start getting those legendary powers, the class actually becomes quite strong. We didn't have access to our boons, which is one of the major endgame systems, kind of like Barbarian. But how it's essentially going to work is you're going to have this mastery system. There's like 4 different animals. Each one of these animal passive slots will grant a bonus, and you can select one from each tier. Then you can specialize into one of these tiers and select 2 of them. There's a little information on the Diablo 4 build calculator and what these are going to entail. There's like one apparently that gives you thorns, max spirit, damage reduction from elites, reduced duration of CC effect, eagle, crit chance, max life, attack speed, crit damage 30%, will cause your next earth skill to overpower. So that actually seemed pretty strong for overpowered builds. Lightning damage causes discharges, shapeshift stuff, reset your ultimates based off nature skills, critical strike stuff, reset companion skills, chance to restore spirit, fortify for 10% of your max life when you use a defensive skill, and calamity. Keep in mind these aren't set in stone, but this is to give you a little basic idea of what the druid legendary power will be at end game. Yeah, anyways, the druid by far the worst leveling experience. Basically how druid is, it's almost like Diablo 3 in a sense, and I feel that's kind of bad. The damage multipliers on druid to make each skill viable are like huge in Diablo 3-ish. It's like 200% damage multipliers, and this basically goes across the entire class fantasy. If you want to play a minion build, same exact thing. If you want to play pulverized build, which I'm playing right now, same exact thing. If you want to play tornado build, you have like you have like 3 legendaries that like increase your lightning damage, attach little conduits to stuff, and you need to have that to make it viable. Lightning storm, same thing, and it's like a channeling spell. In order to make landslide viable, there's 2 big damage increasing legendaries that you need to get. There's like repeat stuff, huge damage bonuses. Druid, extremely legendary dependent, and just the base skill while leveling just felt bad. Anyway, this is the funnest build I ended up finding. I ended up playing everything. I played Hurricane, like your Diablo 2 elemental build. I played your Caster Earth build with Landslide. I played a little pet minion build. I played a Wolf, Rabies, Poison, Shred build, but plus skills were actually bugged on the beta, so you couldn't boost up Shred. Yeah, so you couldn't boost up like Shred on the beta with plus skills. It was actually bugged. It wouldn't give you plus skills. But overall, one of the best generators seemed to be like Storm Strike, just because it, well, first off, gave you damage reduction. It immobilized mobs, what promoted like a lot of like CC effects that would synergize with legendary powers, and it granted vulnerability, which is that 20% bonus, which is really nice. Wind Shear was cool because, well, it generated a little more spirit, it did give you vulnerability, and it gave you a little movement speed buff for like speed clearing dungeons, and then a lot of these other generators I didn't really use too much. All of these core skills ended up becoming viable, but all of them were enabled by like Diablo 3 style boosted legendaries. Defensive skills over here were pretty strong. Ult and Bulwark made you really tanky. Also made you unstoppable, plus CC break, which was nice for hardcore, and also granted fortify. Cyclone armor, cool. It had like some legendary skills or like legendary affixes that would grant your bonus to your teammates, so kind of like a support role type of thing. And Bloodhound had the same exact type of legendary where it would heal you and then apply bonuses to your teammates too. Running debilitating roll on this guy. Fortified chance, wolves for fortify, be that keeps your damage up, and I'm running hurricane, but this is interchangeable with like trample or like just like general passive bonuses. But I felt like with druid you definitely need more points to make it feel a lot more viable. That was my druid setup, and I'll just highlight over my gear real quick and show you guys what I'm running with. So pulverize legendary, mandatory. While you have fortify, your earth skills gain +2 ranks. Damage reduction, earth skills deal more critical hit damage to CC'd enemies, which proc by like hurricane, and also your generator, a little barrier thing over there. Life regen. This legendary power seems so strong early on. I pretty much use it on every single character. This was the other build enable item, which is pulverize. 4 skills, deal increased damage based off fortify, and then also whenever you cast a storm skill, which was your generator, it would give you a huge critical multiplier. So this is my favorite druid build after everything that I experimented with. Let's give you a little dungeon run and show you guys what a decked out druid looks like. So you just go in here, you kind of like put your little debuffs on the mobs, you run into them, and then you just slam the ground, and you pretty much just one-shot everything, right? So you would actually do damage. They're not mobile at all. You could run trample for a little more mobility, but overall you're not really mobile. You're extremely tanky, right? Like mobs aren't gonna like kill you. And druid is actually so tanky, that's kind of funny. You could kind of just sit here and stuff won't kill you. Like I'm not even playing, my hands are like off my keyboard. So for like end game scaling and like defensive capabilities, I can see druid being like probably an extremely strong hardcore character. Yeah, the early game defensive capabilities are there. It's just the early game like leveling and stuff. Like your early game leveling is extremely bad. But yeah, you can literally just put your hands up on druid and you can just like face tank stuff and like fortify, and like your health regen really overpowered, right? And you just pop your defensive abilities, you top up really quick. And yeah, you could do like a thorns, a viable build and stuff. So that's basically druid. Druid has a lot of potential I notice I'm hitting like 11,000 there. One hit, full screen clear. I just walk up to the mobs, right? You debuff them. And it's a one-shot, big old cascade. Druid. What are my thoughts on Druid? My final thoughts on Druid and how am I going to rank it? Druid, by far, the worst leveling experience in the entire beta. You didn't have access to your boons, which was a giant drawback. It had an extreme dependency on legendary affixes and aspects. But once you actually got those aspects together, the Druid actually felt kind of good. And I could see Druid scaling up to late game being really, really strong with its defensive mechanics and also its offensive affixes that we already know of. So for this beta, I will give Druid a rank of B tier. Affixes, a lot of people that start Druid will end up playing it for a little while, going back to the login screen and picking any other character because they don't get to the point of the game where it is fun. The early game experience literally is that bad that most people, yeah, they just won't get the character out to actually give it a chance and see how strong and viable it is. Now, in terms of fun, I actually had a lot of fun with Druid. Extremely fun character with all your like shape shifting and stuff like that. So I would actually put it in S tier for fun. I love the shape shifting, I love the fluidity and everything else. But overall, Druid B tier character in the beta. I put a little bit over Barbarian, but not by much. That's just my personal preference. Necromancer, one of the strongest characters. I don't know if it's the strongest character. One of the most iconic characters of Diablo 2, the Necromancer. Aesthetically, it looks very good though. I like it. So, Necromancer for Diablo 4. It had the really cool class mastery system. It's called the Book of the Dead. And basically, you have minions. Each one of these minions has a different function, right? And you can just specialize into them and it'll summon them. Or you can just elect to not have minions and just grant your character powers. You can even do Thorn builds if you want. So currently I'm running Reapers, and this is just to make more corpses, because I ended up running the overpowered corpse build. I ran Skeletal Mages still. This was just to give me some essences. Or you can just select to, you know, like not put points in here. And you just sack them for bonuses. You know, more essence. Increased damage to vulnerable enemies, 15% chance. That's really big. Overpowered damage increase. Characters do have overpower based stuff. And then you have like your golems that you unlock also after you do your little quest. Necromancer, they have a cool little like class mastery system, and you can get sack stuff, or you could like have this little minion army that runs around you. You have a bunch of legendary powers that add more minions too. But anyways, Necromancer was my best early game experience. You could actually play Necromancer with one hand. I don't know what's up with the early game leveling balancing, but it was mindlessly easy. For leveling, all I really did was just use bone splinters with this little like ricochet mechanic and vulnerability, and I didn't even have to use the spender or like use corpse explode, and I could just auto attack and essentially kill everything with one ability with 1 point each of these. You have like 3 points allocated and just essentially wipe out the entire screen. It was you know, screen wide clear. Just like go Bone Sphere and throw that on there. And then I elected to use Bone Splinters. And then I elected to use Bone Sphere with my spender. I tried out all the different spenders. They were cool, but for me, the class fantasy from Diablo 2, I like Bone Sphere the most. It was like a little crit damage build. And I got a little more essence node there. And then I ran Blood Mist. Early on, I found like the legendary power that basically Blood Mist triggers your corpse explosion. This felt extremely strong, because if you got a high roll on this, or even if you got a little bit of cooldown reduction, you pretty much just exploded corpses and remained immune the entire time, which didn't really feel too fair at all. So yeah, you kind of just put points in your Blood Mist, scrapes corpses, and then you just maxed out like corpse explosion too. I'm not even using a curse. I was using Decrepify for a little bit, and I'm not really using ultimate also on Necromancer. Early game experience from Necromancer, absolutely phenomenal. Book of the Dead, it felt kind of fun and gave you definitely some variety in your setups, whether you wanted more corpses, you wanted to go a minion based build, or you just wanted to sack your stuff. And then you had a lot of build options, right? You could go corpse explosion, you could go spender build, you could go full minion army. So there's a lot of variants in a Necromancer's toolkit. However, outside of Blood Mist that makes you immune, Necro for me defensively felt a little bit on the weaker side. It didn't feel like the most defensive character. However, your damage potential and your clear was extremely, extremely strong. So it's like your stereotypical Diablo 2 farming build where it has really, really good clear, you know. It has really, really good clear.
I need more essence.
And it's really strong. And also when you're clearing, right, when there's minions on the ground and it's exploding, you're immune to damage. You're not taking no damage. And definitely the more density, the better with this build. So as long as you have a little, you know, mob density and there's a couple things around, you just clear everything. But this setup seemed extremely overpowered, and I don't really see them allowing this into the game when it comes out at this level. I think it will get adjusted a little bit. So if you notice, I could literally just spam my immune ability over and over and over again. I technically don't even have to cast other skills. And another thing that's really, really strong about Corpse Explosion, it doesn't require any resources. Ooh, legendary. You gain increased armor. And there you go, that's basically Necromancer. Yeah, so Necromancer, definitely my easiest and best leveling experience out of all the characters. Clear speed, extremely, extremely good. On the beta, you can run an immortal build. And then the other builds, they kind of lack defenses that I played. But the Corpse Explosion Blood Mist build felt really, really strong. But I think that might get adjusted a bit. So overall, I would say my Necromancer experience on the beta, it was S tier. The leveling was so easy, it was mindless. The farming was so easy, it was mindless. No idea how it's going to scale up endgame wise. I can see defensively it might be a little bit lacking, but I think the damage will always be there. But in terms of the beta, I definitely put Necromancer with an S tier in terms of performance. However, though, in terms of fun, I found it extremely boring. This is my overall class performance beta experience. This is not how the classes are going to perform endgame wise, but yeah, this is what I felt they were within the beta. So now in terms of fun ranking, I actually found Necromancer really, really boring. It was overpowered, it was strong, there was like good visuals and stuff. But overall, the class, for me, it just wasn't fun to play. I don't know why it was like that, but I would actually put Necromancer within the B tier for fun. Once you got everything up and running, like between the shape-shifting, the fantasy there, like the fluidity of your attacks and stuff like that. Druid was up here with an S tier for fun. Rogue, same exact thing. I love the mobility on it. I love the quick action points. It felt extremely, extremely fun. And then Barbarian, big slams, heavy melee combat. I felt those A tier terms of fun. Actually, I would actually put Barbarian in front of Sorceress for fun. So in terms of my fun rank, this is my overall fun rank from the beta also. I love mobility on Rogue. Druid, shape-shifting, absolutely amazing. Barbarian, heavy hitting, big damage dealing. Sorceress, I had high mobility. Had a bunch of cool looking visual skills. Overall fun. Necromancer, really strong, but felt boring in general to play. And that is my fun tier list for the beta. Yesterday when I was playing Necromancer, the first time I encountered the Butcher, the minion AI bugged him out and he just stands there. He doesn't actually attack, and it happens for elites and bosses in the game too. Like, so the mobs themselves actually just break the bosses.